All right, so if you're a runner, I bet you followed one of those training plans that just feels super rigid. Predictable, maybe even a little old school. Well, today, we're going to dive into a smarter, way more adaptive way to train. One that actually works with your body, not against it. Let's get right into it. So let's just kick things off with a big question. You know the drill, right? You spend a month building your base, then suddenly it's speed month. And after that, maybe it's strength month. But what if that whole approach, stacking these training blocks one after the other, is actually holding you back? Or even worse, setting you up for an injury?
To get why that is, we've got to look at the traditional model that most of us learned. It's usually called linear periodization. And honestly, it can feel like you're just stuck in an old-school training rut.
So here's how it usually goes, right? You spend weeks, sometimes months, just logging slow, easy miles to build up that big aerobic base. Then, bam, almost out of nowhere, the plan says it's time for really intense speed work. It's a very step-by-step, one thing at a time kind of approach.
But here's where the trouble starts. As the great coach Matt Fitzgerald points out, that sudden jump in intensity is a massive shock to your system. Think about it. Your muscles, your tendons, they've all gotten used to one kind of stress, and then you hit them with something completely different and high impact. It is a recipe for disaster.
So what's the deal here? Why do these super rigid, planned out to the letter schedules so often lead to plateaus or burnout or even injury? Well, the answer isn't really in the plan itself. It's in the science of how our bodies actually adapt to training. It's a fundamental mismatch between a strict schedule and our own messy biology.
And this is really the heart of it all. Your body is not a machine. You can't just put in X amount of work and expect Y result every single time. Real biological adaptation is messy, it's complex, and, as the science shows us, it's completely nonlinear. We just don't improve in a perfect straight line. This quote from a 2020 study just nails it. We are complex adaptive systems. I love that phrase. It means what works for you one week might totally not work the next. It all depends on your sleep, your stress, what you ate, a million different things. And a rigid plan just can't account for any of that real-life complexity.
When you stick to the same kind of training for too long, like in a traditional base-building block, a few bad things start to happen. The first is something called accommodation, and that's just a fancy word for your body getting bored. It gets so used to the same old thing that it just stops improving. And that, of course, leads directly to that dreaded performance plateau. On top of that, the sheer monotony of it all can seriously increase your risk of overtraining and just feeling completely burnt out.
Okay, enough about the problem, right? We get it. The old model is flawed. So let's talk about the solution. Let's get into a much more modern, flexible, and honestly, more effective way to train. It's called nonlinear, or sometimes undulating periodization. And the core idea is actually pretty simple, but it's a total game changer. Instead of spending entire months focused on just one thing, you vary your training much more often. We're talking about changing things up inside of the very same week.
So just throw out that idea of having an endurance month followed by a speed month. With a nonlinear approach, you're training multiple energy systems all at the same time. You're touching on your speed, your endurance, your threshold fitness, all of it, all the time, in a much more integrated way.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds good in theory, but does it actually work? Is there real scientific proof that all this variation leads to better results? Well, the answer is a huge yes. Let's take a look at the data. Check this out. This is from a landmark study back in 2002. Researchers compared a group doing traditional linear training with a group doing daily undulating or nonlinear training. They did this for 12 weeks, and the results were just staggering. Look at the difference. The group that varied their training every day saw way bigger strength gains in both upper and lower body exercises.
I mean, that's the whole story right there. The group that kept their body guessing saw nearly double the strength gains. By constantly throwing a new challenge at the body, they blew right past any potential plateaus and just drove way more adaptation. That is a massive difference.
Okay, so the science is clearly on our side. But how do you actually do this? How do you take this from the lab and apply it to your own running? Let's build a practical playbook that you can start using right away. So what does a nonlinear week actually look like in the real world? Here's a quick sample for someone training for a half marathon. Look at how we're hitting different systems. On Tuesday, maybe you've got a threshold workout, that comfortably hard effort. Then on Thursday, you're doing faster VO2 max intervals to really boost that top-end speed. And Saturday is still your classic long, slow run for endurance. See, you're developing everything at once, all within a single week.
But just having a varied weekly plan is only part of the story. The real magic, the secret sauce, happens when you add another layer on top of this, making smart, in-the-moment adjustments based on how your body actually feels. This idea is called auto-regulation.
And it's really not complicated. It's just a simple 3-step check-in with yourself. First, you assess. How am I feeling right now? Are my legs heavy? How is my warm-up? Second, you decide. Based on that feeling, is this a green light day where I feel amazing, a yellow light day where I'm a little tired, or a red light day where I'm clearly not recovered? And finally, you adjust. Green day? Go for it. Yellow day? Maybe cut the workout a little short. Red day? You know what? Swap it for an easy run. It's about training with your body, not just plowing through a schedule.
Now, I know a big fear here is that all this flexibility sounds like it's just going to lead to chaos, right? That if you don't follow a rigid plan, you basically have no plan at all. Let's just bust that myth right now.
The myth is that nonlinear training just means you wake up and do whatever you feel like. The reality couldn't be more different. This is all about structured variation. The changes in what you're doing, the intensity, the volume, they are all deliberately planned. They just happen more often. It's a smarter, more dynamic system.
And this is so important to remember. All the core principles of training still apply. You absolutely still need progressive overload to get better. You still need a clear goal that you're working towards. The key difference is that in this model, the variation is the plan. It's not a deviation from it, it's the engine that drives you to your goal more effectively.
And I think this quote just brings it all home perfectly. At the end of the day, there's no single magic model that works for everyone. The best training plan is the one that you can actually stick with, the one that keeps you healthy, and the one that lets you keep challenging yourself. For a whole lot of us, a flexible, non-linear approach is the absolute best way to do that.
So I'll leave you with this thought to chew on. Your body is this amazing, dynamic thing. It's adapting every single day to your training, to your sleep, to life. So the question is, shouldn't your training plan be able to do the same?